Yo, what is up YouTube? And today we're going to be talking all about the new PvE game mode that it has dropped that is mostly focused on late game players. And this area of content at first glance can seem very good because you can actually see you can get 4 sets of your choosing from this boss, and this boss can actually drop epic and also heroic gear only, so there's no blue pieces, and there's also a lot of reforged mats and charms, and you get a lot of gold and stigma as well. There's also a season reward, and you can see the rewards are very good, going up to like a reversion mana stone and some equipment conversion gems, and also reforging material selection chests and stuff like that. A lot of goodies. But if you actually delve down deep into it, this new area of content is actually not as good as it seems, in my opinion. So this season will last for 6 months. Every season of the new Rift game mode will last for 6 months, and each season will feature one element. As you guys can see on the top left here where I'm clicking, you can see that only fire elemental heroes are allowed in this Rift, meaning you can only bring a team full of fire heroes. As you guys can see, this is the team I was currently using. It is featuring 4 fire units here, 1 soul lever, 1 tanky bruiser unit in the front, and then 2 damage dealer units. Now let's actually talk about why this new area of content is actually good before we talk about why it's bad. So the reason why I like this area of content is because it's a great way to get pieces from all the best sets. So like I mentioned, you could pick 4 sets here, right? You can switch this at any single time, right? I can deselect torrent here if I want and go to, like, for example, rage set if I want to farm some rage set. And you can see that now if I go into Rift, every time I kill the boss, it will drop, any piece of the 4 sets from these sets that I selected. I'm going to put it back to rage or torrent here before I forget. But basically you can farm the best sets in the game, or the sets that you need from different hunts from one area of content. You can see I'm farming speed set, which is acquired from Wyvern. I'm farming destruction and counter set, which is acquired from Banshee, and then torrent set, which is acquired from Katie. So when I want to farm all of these 4 sets, I can just farm Rift and I can get drops for all of these sets, whereas before I'd have to actually grind through Wyvern, grind through Banshee, and grind through Katie's and get these sets separately, with the chance I even don't get those sets. But here you're guaranteed one of those 4 sets when pieces drop, either heroic or epic. Also, there's no blue or rare gear, so if you actually farm Wyvern, you're going to see, I don't even know if I have any in my inventory because I sell it so often, but you're going to get a ton of these blue crappy pieces, and even for early game players, it's never really recommended to even enhance these because of the fact that it's so low value for the amount of investment you have to put into it. And in this area of content, you actually don't get any blue gear, which is very nice. Also, the season rewards, like I mentioned, have some very good goodies, which is why it's a very good source of these reversion mana stones, which is very important to actually reset your equipment. If you have any high rolled gear, you're actually going to be able to reset them and actually re-roll them. For example, this piece was at an equipment score of 37, I believe, and then rolled into an 87, which is pretty good. It'll go to 100 when reforged, but it kind of low rolled for starting, so I can reset this if I actually fill out the season pass, which is very nice. Also, it's nice because it is technically, and let me say this, technically easy to clear, because all you really need to do is debuff the boss who doesn't do a lot of damage, and you also want to just be very tanky and survive, because as long as you survive, the HP won't reset, which is basically how you want to kill the boss. Now, obviously, you want to kill it fast enough because you can see the energy cost will rack up, but technically, it is easy to clear if you have 4 6-star fire units with a healer, and you have a decent amount of debuffs to prevent the boss from doing too much damage. Now let's actually talk about the cons. You're going to see the cons pretty much outweigh the pros for a lot of reasons. So the first thing is you need a new pet. So there's a new pet skills that are released into the game, and you're gonna see I only have 1 of them right now because I didn't really expect them to release this, honestly. So I have only 1 S skill, and that's going to be getting another piece of equipment. There's going to be 3 other pet skills you can get besides this. Basically, you want to actually make a pet that's similar to your hunt pet. This is my hunt pet, where you get extra score. I think you get extra equipment, and you get extra charms, and even reforge mats. So it's really up to you and what you want, but you're still going to have to grind those pets and pet skills, which is going to be very annoying, because getting 1 pet even to triple S with the skills that you want can take a very long time. I think the first time I got my first hunt pet that was perfect took me almost a year, so it's going to take you a very long time. Also, Rift is very energy hungry, so you can go in as many times as you want. You can see that there's remaining chances. That's how many times you have to fail. So you want to make sure you can kill the boss and not actually die. You have to survive for 40 rounds, otherwise you will fail. And every entry will cost you 20 energy except for the first one. So you can see I'm continuing my rounds, right? I think I've hit hit this boss 3 times already. This is the 4th time. And once I actually kill this boss, you're going to see the energy cost for the first run, which starts the boss sequence, will go up to 40. So it'll be 40 the first run, and then until you kill the boss, every subsequent run will be 20 energy, which is why you can see mine is at 20 energy right now. Also, even though it only drops purple and red gear, the drop rate for the red gear is still pretty low. And once you get into the extreme late game where you're playing for RTA and just super late game PvP content, you're not going to really be enhancing a lot of purple equipment unless the gear score is, the subs are pretty much perfectly rolled, because you're just missing out on a lot of gear score, and most people just want to run for the red gear or roll for the red gear, so most people end up selling the purple gear in the late game anyways. Also, if you look at the gear here, keep in mind the set, and from the 4 sets obviously, and the stats and the substats are still randomized, so there's still a lot of RNG you have to deal with. It's pretty much similar to regular hunts. The only thing is you have the advantage of choosing the 4 sets you want, so you're not going to get, for example, those useless hit sets, right, or those useless, like, I guess, revenge sets, right? I know they're usable technically, but compared to the other sets, they're not used as much. And this way you can get like the most meta sets, which is good, but still, you're still getting the random stats, and for example, if I go torrent set here, I still have the chance of getting like HP percent main stat on the pieces, which is still very, very bad. So even though you can choose a set, you're still fighting for a lot of RNG to make sure the gear you get is actually decent. Also, you require pretty specific units to clear consistently and quickly. Like even my team is like okay, I'd say. I think Ravi should be replaced by a unit like Ken or even like Haste, and then Ball and Sazan should be replaced by a unit such as like Cirilla even, or like the new Kane unit. I'm just using what I have, and because this requires very specific units to clear, it's kind of annoying because you're going to see that you're going to have to gear units that you normally wouldn't gear. Like I have Fire Cern here, which is pretty much useless everywhere except Rift, and that's why I have her on Grace of Growth, which is very annoying. And if you want to actually use multiple units that are kind of niche, such as like Haste and like Cirilla as well, who are good here, you're only gonna have 1 Grace of Growth, meaning that you'll actually have to enhance them, you'll have to awaken them, use Molagora, which is super annoying to do, but it is the best way to do it efficiently, which is kind of annoying, honestly. That's why I don't really want to invest too much in this. Actually, on your screen here, you're gonna see this is Rift calculations. I took this off Discord somewhere, but you're gonna see basically the Rift points needed to get to certain levels. You're going to see that the total runs you need to actually clear on average, and then total energy to kill on average. So at level 1 will take you 100 energy to kill the boss once and get 1 piece of gear, which is pretty stupid. And all the energy you need to level, you're going to see total cost to max your Rift controller, 23,740 energy, which means if the event is 6 months long, that's 131 energy a day on average you're going to have to spend on Rift, which is absurd. And I'm pretty sure the yellow marks here are signaling that you're 10 points off of leveling, which just feels really bad. So yeah, a lot of problems. You can see it's a lot of time invested for very little return. So I don't really know if it's worth it. I think a lot of people are already like level 15 or level 8, I guess, and grinding a lot. But for me personally, I don't really see a reason to do this anymore, because unless there's a change to it, I don't really know if it's worth doing. Maybe if there's like a Rift Point buff weekend, maybe it's worth doing, but for now, looking at these calculations, you can see that it is very, very high time investment and energy investment. Also, you're going to notice that to actually score very highly and actually clear the boss in very few runs, you need pretty high gear score on your units, right? So, for example, all your debuff units need to be at 95% effectiveness if you're running Mascot Hazel, because I believe Mascot Hazel gives 10% effectiveness to all fire allies, and also you're going to need damage. So like for my Ball and Sazan as well, he's on 95% effectiveness, which is a lot. You're wasting out a lot of subs on that while needing damage, while needing a decent tanky stat line, because the boss only does AoE damage. I think you're recommended to have at least 10k health and at least like 1050, 1100 defense to survive on your damage dealing units. Otherwise, they end up just dying, and your runs will be a lot less consistent, because if your debuffers die, they can't put the debuffs on, and also you're just doing less damage per run. So very, very gear intensive, and because of that, you're going to find yourself needing to actually do extra runs a lot of the times unless you have really good gear. And that means you'll actually need to invest a lot of time to actually clear the season rewards, because you barely get any points. Like I have 110 season score, guys, and I'm Rift Controller level 5. So you can see you're going to eventually get to 21, but it's still going to cost you a ton of energy. Like I really think they should reduce this energy cost, because the time investment to level up your Rift Controller to improve your team is just too high. And honestly, there's even like more specifics here. As you actually unlock Rift Controllers, you're going to see there's different effects. The best in slot teams actually change. So you actually need a lot more units built up than you actually think if you want to be the most efficient. And in this game mode, it's really important to be very efficient because if you are clearing the boss in 6 runs compared to someone who's clearing it in 4 runs, you're using 40 extra energy per every loot acquisition because you don't get loot every time you do a run. You only get loot after you kill the boss. So even if I spend this 20 energy here, if I don't kill the boss, I actually won't get loot. So very, very annoying in that regard. And I think it's kind of a oversight on Samool. Also, yes, the cons list goes on and on. There's so many bad things I want to talk about this, and I think you guys should all really know what you're getting into. I think this area of content is a good concept, but there needs to be a lot of changes, honestly. But another thing that's very annoying is because your units require your best gear, you need to swap your gear onto these niche units. So for example, my Surin here has like my 97 equipment score helmet, 98, right? This is 104, right? Like these are the pieces I'm using. Some of these aren't that great, but it's because I have to hit these weird stat benchmarks. But because I need this crazy gear on Surin, I can't use this gear on anyone else. If I want to, I have to spend gold. And as you guys know, unequipping equipment costs gold in this game. So it's very counterintuitive because Rift seasons are meant to take 6 months and they expect you to do this over time. But if I'm swapping gear always, it's just going to take forever to do this. And also, if I'm waiting for those free unequip event buffs and I'm using that to actually re-gear my units and use all my leafs there, if they're not running with like a Rift event, there's not really any point to doing this. And I don't even know if they'll do a Rift event, right? Maybe they'll do a Rift event like Hunt Buff weekend where they'll do like extra season rewards and like, I don't know, extra loot. But I don't know how they do that because there's no crafting materials that drop. And yeah, that's another thing, right? Crafting materials don't drop, whereas in hunts, you're getting crafting materials. And even though Rift gives you extra epic equipment, if you actually epic craft in the Steel Workshop, you're gonna get pretty similar epic rewards, which is kind of like a downside of Rift. You don't have any crafting materials, you only get these points. So yeah, I'm not really sure if this is even worth like farming for the most part once you actually, finish out these season rewards, which will take forever, right? You only get like these gears, you get very little, not very little, you get a pretty decent amount of gold and stigma, but you get very little reforged essences and very little charms. So it's pretty annoying to actually farm this because yeah, you're not getting any crafting materials. Also, if you fail all these chances, by the way, and you get to 0 chances, this goes down every time you die out before 40 turns here on the bottom left, then your energy doesn't get refunded. So all the times you went in, if you actually go to 0 times, the boss's health will reset to full and you don't get refunded your energy, which is super annoying for people testing out teams and for newer players that are trying to get into this content. After like the first few times you fail, you're going to be very, very unlikely to actually do this again because you'll be pretty mad because 40 energy for the first run and 20 after, that's a crazy amount of energy, which is why I think it's pretty stupid. I think they should definitely refund your energy. It makes no sense. And also on that topic, if you crash or even cancel a run, it'll count as a loss. So you can't close Epic 7 until a run is finished. Similar to Brawl from the Midnight Gala Lilius event, which is just super annoying. So yeah, I think Rift is just meh, kind of a fail. I don't think it's really worth it. Unless you have like a super late game account with crazy gear and have all the units required like Surin, Haste, Cirilla, like you have a lot of Mulgora, and yeah, because those units are only used for Rift currently, and if you don't have a lot of Mulgora, there's not really a lot of point in using it on these units because like if you look at how many units were released in the past few weeks, there's so many. So I guarantee you most like 90% of the community probably has like very little Mulgora. Like for me example, I think it's under enhancement, I have 21. So like I'm so low, I can't even max out one character and I have to save for Abyssal Euphine, so I'm pretty screwed. And yeah, it's just really annoying because you're forced to use, especially for fire, because fire season, like a lot of fire units are terrible. It's probably the worst, it is the worst element in the game, so you don't really have a lot of fire element units anyways. So yeah, for example for me, because I don't want to use Mulgora, I'm using just the units I've built. But it's not the most efficient team, which means I'll be using more energy than other players, which is like kind of a big reason why I don't want to do this. But I feel like I have to because these season rewards are pretty good. But maybe I'll decide to not do it because honestly, I don't even know if it's worth it at this point, like in the game with the team I'm running. But yeah, I think 99% of the players are better off farming hunts, guys. I don't even think these season rewards are worth it. Let me know what you guys think about Rift down below. I think it's pretty stupid, very badly designed. And as always, if you guys agree with me, let me know in the comments. If not, let me know in the comments as well. Just curious what you guys are thinking because I think the general consensus is that Rift sucks. So yeah, let me know what you guys think.